Welcome, everybody, to our Sunday Truth Talk. My name is Jona, Bryndis, your living True Self Radio, and today I want to talk about, yes, the uncomfortable subject of the virus scare. And don't worry, I'm not going to tell you to meditate it away, and I'm not going to tell you that it's all conspiracy theory either, but I really want to answer your questions. I want to address your concerns. What makes me feel confident that I have something to say? I'm not a medical doctor. I'm a former chemist and computer scientist, and now I work as energy healer and energy therapist for the last almost 15 years. And my job is to help people through their daily scares, through their fears, through their blocks, and talk about these things in a way that it allows us to become more real, more resilient, and also more confident within ourselves. So thank you for tuning in today. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for all your hearts. I'm seeing them on Instagram, on YouTube, on Facebook. Thank you, everybody. Today is a really important subject here because it is something that goes through our collective like a wildfire, namely the questions in regards to the coronavirus, in regards to this pandemic. We don't know what it means for us. We have all these burning questions. Do I need to prepare? Do I need to let my friends and neighbors and family know that they have to stash up foods or wear face masks or anything of that nature? Indicates that there is enormous stress going on inside of us. And this is something that I want to address here from this energetic healing perspective, and maybe what we can do to counteract this, what we can do to increase our resilience, our immunity, not just our physical immunity, but also our etheric immunity. So yes, there is something like an etheric immune system, and I've had lots of interviews and even TV appearances about this. Well, I wouldn't call it theory of mine, but about this observation that as energy healer, seeing people's energy bodies and recognizing patterns here, why some people are more susceptible to certain things than others and so forth. But I came here to you today with the subject mostly to discuss or to respond to your questions. I have already published the March forecast where I've addressed some of the technical aspects of the virus scare, like is this something that is worse than the flu, or is this just fear-mongering? And in there I explained that it doesn't actually matter whether this particular virus mutation is man-made or not, whether it is something that's gonna, affect us or kill us. What matters more, and this is the part here that particularly addresses people who are on this verge, of discovering their own inner powers and their energetic sensitivity, which allows us for higher levels of discernment, and especially discernment of truth. So discernment of truth is something that I've been talking about for 10 years now. What am I referring to when I talk about this? This is a part in us that allows us to recognize if something is important to us, if something is something that we need to pay attention to, that we need to heed. It has to do with our inner signals, and our inner signals, they can be filtered, and we call this perception. So the way we perceive things, unfortunately, is determined by a lot of inner and outer factors. And one of these factors is indeed the whole purpose of these Sunday Truth Talks, namely to reflect on current collective energy. So there's collective factors. We are herd animals. We respond not only to the things that we see with our five senses, that we touch, that we smell, that are actually happening to us, we also, or better say, our energy, our psyche, responds to things that are going on in the collective. And the more energetically sensitive we are, the more awakened and the more awake we are, the more sensitive we become to these collective energies. And as somebody who's been working with this for so long, and goes into these places, into these unseen places, guides people through this, helps them to build a roadmap, helps them to navigate through their own and outer energies. It is of my concern here in regards to the coronavirus and the medial spectacle that is happening around this, in regards to how this is going to affect us. All right, and I've made my point in the March forecast. The biggest concern that I have is not that it wipes out humanity, that's not going to happen, but that it changes the way we interact with another, that it changes our social structure in a way that we cannot even fathom, because we are way too busy, all right, to think about preparedness or to think about our own lives and our children and all these things, our money and so forth. So please come up with some questions, guys. This is the interactive part here, the forecasts and all the webinars that I do here with the Sacred Self-Healing community within this transCODES platform. They're interactive as well, but when I post a forecast, I take the personal stuff out. Here, you have the opportunity to actually address some of the things that you would like to know. What are some of the burning questions that you have about the virus scare? There are a few questions that came in here before this Truth Talk, so I have this link here where you can send in your questions up front, anonymously if you so wish. And obviously there is this common question right now, whether or not we need to do anything about this. Okay, so obviously my suggestion is always that we need to do something. We have to be active. We have to be real. We have to be our own sovereign in our life. This is the single most powerful medicine that we have. All right, the most toxic thing that we can allow in our life is passivity. And this is also where some of the issues with this spiritual awakening and the New Age community and so forth comes from. And even though I teach how to meditate and I teach people how to go feel their own etheric and work with etheric energies and all that, this is not the answer to brush over everything. You cannot just ignore, your physical and your ego responding to a threat that you are heavily bombarded with. And so my answer is yes, you have to be active. But what is it actually that you need to be active with? Do you need to buy into the fear that is collectively being produced? Do you need to be afraid of losing everything and go into erraticness with your decisions? Obviously not. When you are pragmatic, when you are real with yourself, that never is the answer. Okay, so the first energy tip that I can give you, and this is common sense obviously, is to ground yourself, is to be real, to be and see everything that is going on, but to ground yourselves outside of everything that is going on, better say inside. Okay, so take time outs throughout the day. This is something that does not develop naturally for us. What develops naturally for us is scare, fright, anxiety, worry, all right, and trauma responses in our body. That is natural. That is part of our ego's self-preservation. So in order to become able to actually zoom out and see the larger context and to ground yourself in your own self, all right, you need to cultivate this. You need to create a daily routine, literally, just like exercising and eating good food and drinking enough water and sleeping and so forth, that allows you to step out of this collective bombardment, this collective phantom pain or phantom fear, and really feel into your own inner signals. All right, so do I need to be worried right now, besides all the stuff that is coming in through my ego mind? Do I actually have to do something? So grounding is the first tip that I can give you. The second tip, and all these tips here, they really have to do with your powers, all right, is to understand that there are and always will be things that we cannot control. So the acceptance of what we can and what we can't control is something that forms resilience in us, because it helps us to prioritize. It helps us to decide what we focus on. All right. So if you have things in your life that you cannot change right now, or say not for a specific amount of time or whatever, you know you're going to have to go through this, all right, then it makes no sense to waste your life force on trying to resist this. Even, resentments, and even the ones that you just feel inside, or anger, or all these things, they are real, these resistances, and they need to be released. So your second power is to be realistic, but to also develop a good habit of, or a good routine of, releasing all these inner responses, these inner resistances. All right, and we call this clearing in energy work, self-clearing, to have a good routine of knowing how you can release things that worry you inside. You don't want to bottle anything inside. Why? Because energies have to go somewhere, guys. They don't just poof away. Just because you're not saying anything or doing anything doesn't mean that this anger energy, or this fear energy, or any kind of other energies that you feel within yourself as resistance, that they gonna just gone. They go and they will stay in your body. And this is one of the reasons why I keep pointing people at the fact that our physical immune system is directly linked with our etheric immune system, because a lot of the things that happen within our system that make us susceptible are actually induced by ourselves, by not really knowing how to ground, how to center, and how to self-clear things that are coming in. And I'm not going to teach you fancy energy work here within this context of the truth talk. This is what transCODES does. But it's very simple, really. You have to give things an outlet. You have to let things come out of you, all right? And the most natural way to allow energies to come out of you is through your physical, is through moving, is through not just exercising. It can also be activities such as writing or singing or talking to somebody, having truth talks with other people, all right, that you trust. All right, so this second energy tip, and basically aligning you to your second strongest inner power in you, is your sovereignty, is the ability to know what is yours and what isn't, and to decide which you focus on, and to consequentially negate everything that is coming in from the outside, or negate that things that stay within you. You can't see this right now. I'm having a little visitor here. Neighbor's cat. Very cute. The third tip that I want to give you here, for those who ask, what can I do, is is the remembrance that this ability to discern what is good for you and what isn't. All right, this is also stored in you. You're not just a pack animal, and you're not just someone who has an autonomous nervous system in response to threats with an ego. You also someone who has a multitude of inner signaling through your body, through your emotions, through your thoughts, through your perception, and your ability to really feel into things as a true self, as a soul self. All right, and discern whether things resonate as true with you, or whether they resonate as expansive for you, if this is something that you want to pay attention to or want to align yourself to. So when it comes to the practical aspect of that, I really want one thing here to sink in for you, and that is that your greatest power of all, the combination of these three tips here that I just gave you, is that you have the sovereignty to decide what you pay attention to. In healing and self-healing, the power to do this comes from knowing that you have that power. It doesn't come through skills. It's actually more like a letting go of all the overlay that blocks the access to your skills. But the actual power to self-heal, to out-vibrate something, to increase your vibes, okay, so that things such as accidents and dramas and virus infections and stuff like that, that they happen to you, to decide whether or not you're going to take them on, whether or not you're going to identify with them, whether or not you're going to align yourself to it. And so the biggest tip of all that I can give to you without any woo-woo stuff, all right, is to recognize and remember that you have the power to negate this. You have the power to negate this fear, to negate the scare, and with it all the side effects, namely getting pulled into severe mental states such as anxiety or depression, or getting into erratic behavior, or deciding things that are coming out of like a trauma response rather than your senses, all your senses. Okay, so it's very important that you remember this. Self-healing is the power to out-vibrate whatever it is that is trying to come in. And in that way, it is just like our physical immune system and immune system. It is something that forms resilience in you. And so, yes, the main point here of this truth talk is obviously that we have to find ways actively, and these need to be cultivated, not just in regards to the coronavirus, but in regards to everything in our life, everything that we pay attention to, everything that we donate our energy to. We have to recognize that that is what we energize. And when we get scared, when we go into our ego, when we go into anxiety, when we go into all these things that distract us from being able to discern truth, from remembering that we need to ground and clear ourselves, that's when our energy body becomes fragmented. And whenever our energy body becomes fragmented, that's when it's susceptible. So a healed energy body, all right, is in balance, is in a state of unification, is in a state of unity. And this is the same here for our collective. These energetic dynamics, these laws of energy, okay, if you want to call them this way. They work on a microscopic as well as a macroscopic level, okay, which means that the biggest problem here with things such as the virus scare and obviously these new conditions that we never had before, because we've had virus scares or like really strong and fatal diseases throughout all the centuries of human existence. But we never had a media that is that we allow so close, all right, that it can bombard us with updates and another high schooler died somewhere in the world, and here's a mother who just lost her husband or her child, and and constantly feeds us with this fragmentation. We never had this before, and so this is a new condition, and this new condition requires us now to cultivate the very things that are, or that have been coming in for us now here all along. It is what we all feel, with this global awakening. So you see, with, one new development, one evolution, so to speak, comes the confrontation with the devolution, the confrontation with the untruth of that. So what you can do here as aware or awake person is to motivate yourself and everybody you know to not buy into the scare, but by still staying realistic enough to understand that this isn't just a mental problem and that you can't just, shove the thoughts away. You have to do something with these thoughts, because these thoughts are energy. If you don't release them, if you don't ground, if you don't clear them, they're going to stay in you and they're going to catch up with you. They're going to slap you in the face, and eventually you're going to succumb to them, because your energy knows. Your body knows. Your emotions know. Your ego knows. Your soul self knows. You can't kid yourself. All right? So this is the part here that is so difficult for all of us right now. We have to straddle two worlds. We have to stand with one leg in the 3D and recognize what is going on here on the 3D level, on a collective level, and with the other leg in our own etheric reality, where we see that there are other things going on. And this is the second most frequent question that I'm being asked. Or what is is this man-made? What is the stuff that is going on besides, just the fear-mongering, fragmenting us as people, driving us into social distancing, no longer touching another, not going to gatherings, and feeling apprehensive about connecting, cutting ourselves off from, one of the most vital powers that we all have, the ability to connect, the ability to connect within, the ability to connect with another. What is it that is going on there? Is the virus man-made? Is it a conspiracy? Is it a bioweapon? Well, the reality in this, and the common sense of all of this, is that nothing here in at least this media world is a coincidence. All right, so there's the developments here that happen on a microscopic as well as macroscopic level, that always point at some kind of agenda, some kind of goal with this. The one thing that is new here, as opposed to, like, say, the past conditions, is that the media itself now has an interest. So we have more factions than we had before. Typically, if you think medieval times, or even Egyptian times or whatever, you had like this one authority, this one oppressive force, and it was mainly working with authoritarian type of measures to scare people into not standing up, into not rebelling, into not recognizing their own power. But now we have several factions here that are working to, frantically trying to dominate. Okay, the spiritual freedom that is growing in us, namely through recognizing that we actually have the sovereignty over ourselves and that we can out vibrate things. All right, and yes, there are several factions, but I want to ground this for you too without going into this conspiracy realm with this. It is our ego comfort, it is our consumerism, it is our entitlement, all right, to take life for granted and to think that we are here to get the most out of this and to align to the havingness and owning and getting, all right, that makes us most susceptible to all these power systems that are trying to grab, that are trying to harvest our life force energy. Okay, so those of you who have intuitively or consciously decided to not participate in this global consumerism, all right, you guys have already probably formed a little more resilience here to some of these scares, all right, no matter what they are. Okay, there's many more scares. It's just that right now, and this is something that we've been adjusting, trying to inform and prepare you guys for, that we are at the verge of a huge restructuring of our social superstructure. All right, because we've never really had this global situation here before. All right, now we can be informed about, a person in China dying of something. Before we simply, I mean, it took way too long for us to even get that information. So the spread of information and the value of data is changing right now. And this is where, our sovereignty needs to come in. We need to understand that information and perception are, is the battleground. Okay, this is where all this happens. So at the end of the day, you need to develop a really clear roadmap for what kind of information you are taking for real. All right, I mean, we always will have to deal with our ego's duality, and that is that we are mortal. Okay, that is a truth in life. Okay, and the part in us here that is awakening, that allows us to feel that there is more to this. All right, that is getting stronger, in 5 to 10% of the population. All right, we are the ones that can actually send out a different message, and this is really the purpose here of these truth talks. You spending this time with me here right now, and this kind of information is a testimony. It's telling you that a part in you resonates with truth. Okay, not that I'm the only one who knows truth, but I'm talking about truth. All right, and this is the part here that gets strengthened through this. What concerns you the most? I've had thoughts in these last days that had to do with responsibility. I really had to contemplate about my responsibility in this and take all my ego out and all, I'm a mother of 3, I have pets, I, have lots of loved ones in my life, and I really had to spend a lot of time with myself to get this clear. Okay, I am seeing a huge shift through this virus scare, but not what you think. I'm seeing technology that is being introduced to us as a result of the scare, that is supposed to bring us relief, that is supposed to prevent something like that in the future. It is manipulating us into buying into things that we would normally not agree to. It is supposed to take our common sense, our discernment out. So this is my biggest concern here. And my part in this personally cannot be to scare people about that on top of everything. All right? I need to show that the power is in connecting, is in really feeling into your inner truth, to be at the right time, to say the right things at the right time, to be at the right place at the right time, and to listen to your inner guidance. All right, and this comes through cultivating this inner connection. The more you cultivate this, the clearer those signals are. And fear and anger and all these things, fighting against things and resisting, they all create an overlay that make it more difficult for you to trust in your inner guidance. Really remembering that I can't make anyone see this differently. It's tricky. But as I feel centered, I naturally just love conversations and then let any outcome for them to not be me. I love this holistic, optimistic, positive here on Instagram. Yes, it has to do with how you decide to, what you decide to identify with and what you decide to put out there. That's it. Hi, Sheila. What else comes up for you guys? What are some of the thoughts or you don't just have to have questions. Okay, Syria is sharing here, this is a possibility to finally see how important safeguarding our immune system is, and that the current practices have depleted it. I see this as a cleanse. It is a very good point. Yes, it's a form of deflation, and this is also what happens here in the global financial markets. Okay, there's a deflation that is happening right now that is needed, like a cleanse. All right, we need to, sort of from time to time ground in this. Okay, I have a cat in the background here that is really wanting to be part of the show, so just enjoy her expressions of life force here, but don't get distracted by it. All right, yeah. So this is it, guys. All right, yeah. To not let this be you. You go into your highest expression, an embodiment of your soul, through how much you can express love, how much you can bring love into expression, be it the love for yourself and your own physical immune system, Syria, or be it the love for life itself or others or kitties or, whatever it is. That is your strongest weapon, guys. And I know what this sounds like. Oh, love can heal all. Yes, if it's a transfigured type of love, all right, that is externalized and that needs objects, then it's not true. But if it comes from this really strong feel of inner loving life, then it's true. What are some other concerns that you have, or even thoughts maybe that you want to share here with us? Yes, and sharing hearts is a very good way of expressing your love. Thank you guys for your attention. I know that this is a sort of a deeper process, and this is why I think it's so important that we remind ourselves to cultivate that. If you would like to hear me talk about the virus scare in its particulars, all right, what I think is behind all this, besides the things that I've already mentioned, then please watch the forecast for March. I think it's very important that we understand that it is the fragmentation within ourselves that makes us most susceptible, be it to anxiety, be it to, getting sick, all right? And that we remember that we have the authority and the sovereignty and, the practical self-healing abilities to outvibrate this by choosing to negate this scare as reality. All right. If you don't have any questions or comments, then I would like to close here. I want to thank you for, coming to this community. We have an energy forum at transCODES that allows the deeper exchange. Also, all these sessions that you see in the transCODES event calendar, those are all live sessions that everybody can attend to, sign up for, and in the forum we discuss them on this deeper level. Yes, our best immunity is to decide that we are immune. I love you guys. Thank you for joining here. And I hope that you get through these next weeks without getting pulled into, the scare, and that you have somewhat of a plan here, to deal with these incoming energies for yourself and how to activate your own self-healing. Bye-bye.